It is already 12:02, so let us start on time. I can see Emeritus Professor Sogolo is here. Good morning, sir. And I can see Professor Ojo. Good morning, Prof. Professor Ojo. And who else can I see? Okay, that's Dr. Lojede. How are you, Doc? You're welcome. And I can see, I don't know this person. I hope I'm forgiven. Is it Dr. Ibrahim Wamaja? Am I right? I don't know.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, you are welcome. We are very few on this platform today, but good afternoon. Hope as we go along, more people will join us. So because we are always in the habit of catching to time, we're already 3 minutes behind. Yeah, 3 minutes behind schedule, but we're going to start straight off. So good afternoon, everyone. It's like Prof didn't hear me. Emeritus Professor Sogolo, I didn't hear his voice. Well, I hope he's there.
No, he's
there.
Okay.
I'm hearing you now.
Okay,
I'm trying to log on with another device.
Yes, welcome, sir. It's nice having you online.
My network is not stable.
Yes, I think it's everyone actually. The network is quite bad generally. So we are happy to have our presenter here today, and we are going to start straight off. And I must commend our presenter in a very special way because she's always ready to be available on this platform. Maybe we are going to give her the award winner of the year on this our platform because she's always ready to be with us, and we appreciate her so much for it. And we are hoping that others will learn from her. She's ever available. So thank you so much, Ma, for always being with us. To start off properly, I say good afternoon to all of you, and on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, I welcome you to yet another presentation on our platform, Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, our monthly presentation.
Yes, we do this morning.
Okay,
5,000
Prof is not muted. Let's see if we can mute him. Sorry, just a minute. Let me see if I can mute Prof. Yeah, I think it's muted now so that we don't have background noise. Okay, so like I was saying, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Olufemi Peters, I welcome you to this presentation. And today also promises to be a very exciting one. And I'm sure we will all be happy that we made it to this platform this afternoon. So before going on to introduce our presenter of today, I'm going to tell you just give us a brief background of our center, the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, which was established in 2020 with a seed fund from TED Fund. It's a Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, like I have said. And so it means we have a dual purpose, a dual function to be involved in migration issues as well as issues on global studies. So this center was established by the immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, and our current Vice Chancellor is very passionate about the center, and we are receiving maximum support from him, for he is keeping the center going. And our vision in this center is to be the bridge between humanity and the future. And we have the mission to provide leverage for interdisciplinary research in migration and global studies. And of course, we have core mandates, which include to provide leverage, like I said, for field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as agents of national policy for migration and global studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series, to collaborate with stakeholders in the field of migration, global studies, and policy makers, to organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures in migration and global studies. I would say as much as possible, this center has been trying very hard to meet all these mandates, but then we still keep improving and keep being innovative. So, and I will let you know that our journal, the second one for this year, which is volume 3, issue 2, is going to be out before the end of this month, because we've already gone far in its in that publication. And we, of course, we have our monthly seminars, and we're going to have a sensitization workshop February 2024. So plans are already in top gear for that, with the maximum support of the Vice Chancellor. And we say a big thank you to him. And of course, we also have our website, journal website, which one of my admin staff will put online now for you to go there and see what we have and what we're doing, as well as we have our Migration Center website. So we have a whole lot of activities, and we hope you will continue to key into it so that you will have our YouTube presence, we have our Google Scholar presence, and we are trying to get more indexing from other indexing formats to get our journal indexed in more than one indexing format, actually. So we have right now the Google Scholar indexing, and we're working on others. And of course, we are going to take this site, this center, to the highest peak, and to maintain its international presence. We have many international editors as well as editorial members, and so on and so forth. So go to our site and learn more about what we do and subscribe to our activities. Having said that, I'm going to go straight ahead to introduce the speaker for today. I'm sure almost all of us on this platform right now know the speaker. However, we are going to introduce her so that those who don't know about her, especially our outside community, we want them to know about our speaker for today, and we are going to introduce her. She's no other than Professor Iyabode Omolara Akewo Nwabweze, Professor of English Language Specialization. She's currently the Dean of the Faculty of Arts of the National Open University of Nigeria. She's also a member of the prestigious Nigerian Academy of Letters between 2015 and 2016. She was a visiting scholar to the Department of English, University of Ghana. She has published in reputable academic journals. She published the book Introductory Phonetics and Phonology in 2011. She has written and edited course materials, including psycholinguistics, undergraduate and postgraduate, as developer and co-writer for her department, as well as in syntax, phonetics and phonology, sociolinguistics, and semantics. She edited a book of readings, communication and language skills in 2018, published by Cambridge Scholars Publishing, United Kingdom. She's also the lead author for the book Introduction to Psycholinguistics in 2023, which has been accepted for publication by TEDFund. Her ongoing book project, among others, is Communication, Theory, and Practice. She's also on the editorial teams of journals, national and international, and of course, in our own esteemed journal editorial team, at the Center of the International Journal for Migration and Global Studies. And she's her passion for academics sees her leading several research teams within her institution and in collaboration with other institutions. She has also obtained grants for field research as well as for travel to present papers at conferences nationally and internationally. She's also interested in documenting the Okwe dialects of the Edo State of Nigeria, the Edo language, for which she's currently in search of collaborators. She has been a motivator and mentor to many academics in her field and across other faculties. She has published plays, prose, and poems. Some of these could be found in Amazon websites. She is a princess. I'm very proud to say that on Princess Omolara Onwabwezi. She also led the media unit in her place of worship. So not only academics, but she's also into her religious activity, where she was the lead editor of the church magazine. She's currently the chairwoman, local school board, Kingdom Heritage Model School, Living Faith Church, Ogogoma, Abuja. She employs technology and to also deliver her educational contents at every opportunity she has to impart knowledge and impart others, especially the younger generation. She always excels in all her given tasks, including delivering world-class scholarship and leadership. See, this author, sorry, I said author, well, she's an author. This presenter, we can go on and on and on, but I want to stop here for want of time. Today, she's going to be talking to us about linguicide and African languages, green economy as a strategic platform for preservation. And on this note, I will want us to join me to welcome Professor Iyabode Omolara Onwabwezi to make her presentation. Over to you, Ma. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Ma. Anyway, we thank God. So I want to just go straight to the point. Like, you know, we are actually, I'm having people coming all this way. So I want to do this quickly. But I want to, at this time, acknowledge my husband is here, Professor Onwabwezi. You are welcome. My students too are here. And I also want to appreciate, I can see Wofa, I can see Appa and Philomena. I can see many of them. Then my colleagues too are here in the faculty. I want to first of all appreciate Professor Emeritus Okolo, and as well as I can see Dr. Lojede, Dr. Abdusalam, Dr. Gwamaja, and Dr. DK. Then my other staff, I also acknowledge them. Dr. Mrs. Sulaiman, Moya, sorry, I can see them too. Then Dr. Ojoto from Social Sciences. So I appreciate all of you for showing up. And I can see some of our people too from now here. I can see Professor Bewaji and some other people. So you're all welcome. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to share my screen. Please, you have to allow me to share screen. They say that you have to allow me to share screen, please. It said host disabled participant screen sharing.
I have already made you a co-host. Please check again.
Okay, so yes, I can see it now. Thank you. Okay, so thank everybody for showing up. I want to say this, that concerning this paper, actually it was a paper that I've been working on for quite a while. I presented a shorter version of it, but I'm just doing an expanded version of it now. So this one now goes beyond the limited aspect that I treated before. So I'm doing a much more expanded, for trying to go beyond a limited space in this. So we are starting. So the name of the paper again is Linguicide and African Languages, Green Economy as a Strategic Platform for Preservation. And the name, you have been told my name and many other factors, so I'll skip those. So by way of introduction, I just want us to know that when you talk about flora and fauna, it's usually considered only in terms of vegetation, but essentially the existence of language itself can also be seen in terms of eco-diversity. And as we go along in the paper, we'll see what we are talking about. So people only think of, when you talk about something to do with ecosystem, eco-criticism, echo this, echo that, you only think of the world of flowers, you think of the world of plants and all of that. But then it is beyond that, because the concern in this paper actually is that we have many languages in the world being choked, and the African languages are not spared, neither are Nigerian languages where many of us are. So this is what actually is a concern for this paper. So what are the objectives? What do we really hope to achieve? We are hoping here that this study can actually investigate the forces that are against diversity of African languages, because this essentially is what, whether you talk about green economy or whether you talk about ecocoutism, these are what are their focus. So it is to provide answers to the role the Africans in the whole of the process, and it attempts to link the domination of the forces against Africa to green economy, which is a concept that we are going to talk about as we go along, and how this is affecting African languages and how we can actually, reverse the trend. So this is what we are trying to look at here. So let's look at some of the research questions that we have here. So the study wants to find answers to some of these questions. We may answer all, we may not answer all, but as we go along, so let's hope that we are able to cover everything as much as possible. But essentially, the core of what we are going to be looking at is that what is the effect of the colonial policy of do not speak in vernacular on the psyche of the average Nigerian stroke African towards the English language and other colonial languages. And we are going to actually be looking at two, because they are the most dominant upon the continent of Africa. And why is the persistent domination of the European languages in the consciousness of the average Nigerian stroke African? And then how is this domination played out in the linguistic choices and usages among Africans and Nigerians? And then what is the future of the Nigerian and African languages? Look at from the angle of colonialist linguistic domination that bestride the African linguistic landscape. And what is the place of green economy as a concept in preserving the African languages? So I'll be looking at the concept of language itself. I will expand on this on the next slide, but here, what are the consequences that have resulted in language death due to colonial domination? Because you look at the history of what is affecting us now actually is, I think there's thesis I examined recently, and he was talking about pre-colonial, the colonial, and the effect. You see, when you look at the analysis of some things fall apart, and then you see the effect that colonialism has had upon the African system and psyche. And then, like, I also did a paper and asked about how the growth of women and how you see women lost their place. It is all due to colonialism. Some people may not agree with it, but then this is what we have seen from the empirical study data we have studied. So the colonialists made African language appear inferior through a simple policy. A simple policy that many of us got in contact with when we were in school. We just say, do not speak in vernacular. And what is this vernacular? What is this vernacular? The language many Africans now look down on the indigenous language. That is a consequence. So because you are told not to speak the language into which you were born, then you now begin to look down on your language. Now, the real danger now is that the homes many have adopted, in many homes, whether it's English or French, whatever is it, the language, many people have adopted it as the language to be spoken. And so, of course, you are fortunate to be born in a country where you have only one language. So the positive consequences of such practice is the definite death of the indigenous languages of the world. Now, if you know the story of Liberia and what led to the world, it is because some people felt because they were repatriated from America as slaves, and they became superior to the indigenous people. So you cannot divorce this thing from the political reality of the people. So let's look at what is the concept of language itself. Now, eco-critics look at, they try to bring awareness to the fact that when you are looking at the environment, you should have eco-diversity. You should not allow maybe species, whether of plants or flowers, of animals, to die. So we also say that it also becomes important to retain linguistic diversity in the world, because we are not the same people. Yes, you will say it is the problem of Babel. Okay, but then that is also the reality. So why do we want some languages to die? So the simple reason for this is that language is the identity of those that own it. So anybody that speaks a language, that is their identity. That is who the person is. Clearly, the language that is not just about the extinction of a language, but the transition of a people. It means the dying of a people, their person, their reality. Who they are dies in their language. So language does not, go beyond just that one language dies. It's also the destruction of a peculiar rare part of us, just the way it does with that plant that dies, that animal that dies, that you can no longer find in the environment. So a section of our being as human beings has died, when the language dies, you will have seen people where there's only one person in the world still speaking a language. It is not made up. That is the truth. And this is the antithesis of the idea of what green economy is about. Economy is about sustainable development. Linguicide is just anti-development in reality. And that is why language death is something that we should not allow to happen. Now, let us see now, what is that link between eco-criticism and linguistic diversity? So when you look at eco-criticism, essentially it is a critique based on the environmental preservation. And now this is also mostly within the link of language and literature. So when you talk about eco-criticism, you're actually talking about the reality of preserving the environment, about sustaining the environment, but doing it through language and doing it through literature. So when you look at city inquiry, then attempt to upstage linguistic diversity, because when you look at these things that are affecting who we are as a people, as Africans, so it means that the essential issue is that the Africans' cooperation with the force of colonialism is working against our linguistic diversity. Is working against who she is. Is working against the reality of who we are as Africans, because we are losing ourselves as a people. And this is what eco-criticism tries to inquire. This is what CDA linked with eco-criticism tries to interrogate. And this is where the basis on which we are actually looking at this particular paper in this time. So cultural eco-diversity as scientific maintenance and preservation. So we are looking here that, okay, how can we, as a people in Nigeria or in Africa, maintain linguistic diversity, which is actually a part of what will help us. Like we said when we discussed language, to have global linguistic diversity is that we are preserving that which we have locally. So you have the world languages, but you have most of the people are tending towards a particular, just a set of language. When you look at the United Nations, you have about 2 languages in the world being spoken. And then every other person come there and they have to speak that language. And then the rest of the world are speaking that language, and you have only a few people. Most languages of the world are spoken by just few people, but a few languages in the world are spoken by everybody else. So the identity of any people that is resident in their language. And when you lose that language, I cannot say this enough, it is that you have lost that people. You have lost who they are. You have lost everything about them. And that's why what linguists do is this. When you see a language that's under threat, they try to at least recall the last person. Let's say we once lived like this. If you look at also what happened with Kinta Kunte, how was Alex Haley able to trace his roots? Because of the name of the progenitor. Kinta Kunte was able to be traced to Gambia because of that name. Where did this kind of name come from? And because that man refused to let himself die, because he wanted to tell them the story of who he was. And because of that, just a name, with that, he was able to get to the generations of his own children that were able to now trace who he came from. So when you lose the language, you lose the people. This is what we are saying. Now, how does green economy fit into this? Now, green economy is about preserving global biodiversity for a purpose of preserving life. Green economy is about preserving the environment, so that when the environment is preserved, we are able to develop, we are able to be sustained. Now, when we use this base, this platform, to look at, again, what is happening to our language, then we're able to say, okay, what is it that is the thing about Africa? Africa has many languages, but then we are now having about 2 or 3 languages that are from outside of Africa dominating. And what, again, is it the problem? Because these languages that are dominating are also squeezing out life out of the one we have. And this is also the cooperation, active cooperation of those of us that are expected to be educated. So let's look at languages that are under threat. Now, the first thing is that no Nigerian language is paired with this. Nigeria become an extension of the British Isles. Whether you want to accept this or not, because as we go along, you will see what we are talking about. Mixing Nigerian languages with English is considered civilized. Even when you watch at least I'm more familiar with Yoruba films because that's the language that I'm a bit more familiar with. When you watch Nigerian films, the Nollywood, even people that are speaking Yoruba, that's supposed to be doing Yoruba films, you see half of it is in English, mixing this. Now speaking English without the same aperture of code mixing is seen as modernity. And so I did a study on this. And what we found among Igbos is that when you are speaking English, you do not code mix. But when you are speaking the Igbo language in formal settings, you see the people code mixing. I mean, this does not make sense. But then that is the truth. Because I speak the English now without having to mix it with any other language so that I can make my point. But now, if I want to speak the indigenous language, how straight can I speak this? I am sure many of us we are guilty of this one way or the other. Because I don't know how many of speak our languages without putting any English word inside or French word inside if you have a French background. Or maybe yours is Spanish. Maybe, or it is a I don't know, there's a country, Portuguese, yes. I think there's a country in Africa that is, I think Namibia now. So I don't know how many of us speak our languages without actually putting in another language. Or probably, maybe you are from North Africa. Yours may be, you have your Berber language, but you also have Arabic as dominating it. So this is also the reality that we find as Africans. Then this reality of Nigeria is also replicated in many African countries, as we will see as we go along. It's also the reality of many colonized peoples of the world. When you go to the Americas, the languages of the indigenous people is almost extinct. When you go to Brazil area, the indigenous people are fighting for their lives. When you go to Australia, I think there was a legislation that was made recently, and then the people are fighting for their lives. And this is also the problem. So it is not just a Nigerian thing, it's not even just an Africa, it's a global thing. So a cultural effort will have to be made in order to preserve the indigenous life, as India seems to have largely succeeded. Now, when I say India, this much I know is my interaction with Indians, as much as possible, is that Hindi is the dominant language there. But then I've also seen many Indians that speak the impeccable English. So I don't know if they speak Hindi because I don't understand Hindi. Probably they will not mix it. But it seems that it's one of the three places where you have seen the large success of this. Because why I'm using it, because India was also colonized, like many other places that we are mentioning now. And they seem to be able to move, not just in the language they speak, but also to kind of find themselves back into the original place they are. But somebody may have further information and let us know about that. Now we try to do this study by looking at, I actually look data recording of particular language usages. There were two general occasions that I used within the Nigerian system. Then also in some other interactions I actually had outside the Nigerian system. So we did ethnographic recording of live linguistic events, which I use as data source. And then we also have involvement with interaction with other Africans at other different fora to also see what actually happens when Africans meet outside. So this is also what we have found. So the first one is this, that we have a case here of a marriage ceremony. Now, this is a traditional marriage ceremony. Definitely, if you're in the church, probably you say, okay, maybe that particular church, like we have in Nigeria mostly, you will have people say, okay, what language is used in the church is English and all of that. But in this particular case, you have a traditional marriage being held in the home of the bride. And the MC that is anchoring that program, every time he was speaking the language, dialect, he was mixing it with English in a ceremony that is supposedly indigenous. Now, one may want to say, okay, maybe this person is the groom is a Briton. The groom and his family were there, and that may be accounted. But then I looked at this, that this is an indigenous ceremony. Maybe if you ask it too much to ask the groom to have learned the language, But basically, everything that was done there, that is supposed to be traditional marriage, was done mixing Okpe and English. And the person that was anchoring the program is an Okpe person. So you begin to wonder, why did he need to do this? Like I said, you may want to excuse that and say, oh, maybe because the groom is from another language. So you must find a meeting point. Anyway, that one is for you to look at and see if it makes sense. Then there another data that I was in this church and I was listening to the sermon of a Reverend Father. Now, when you look at the people that were making up the congregation, about 98% of them are actually people of that locality. And they all seem to speak the language Ika that belongs to that. This is from Delta State. But the funny thing I have is this, that every time the Reverend Father was preaching, he will say half of these things in English and half of this, of course, mostly in Ika, but also say it in English. And I begin to wonder, so why did they think he felt compelled to speak English if the larger part of a congregation is in Ika? Like I'm going to, I don't know if I have that there in the data of my other experiences in other clients. You will see that that is not what you are having in those places. So, and I begin to wonder why. Why does the Reverend Father, when he knows that the larger part of a congregation, yes, I know that I educated people among them, but why did he think that he felt? So I was just looking at it, my study, I said, okay, probably because he felt it was a Linguicide period and there are strangers there. But I just believe that the strangers can be helped by other people that probably brought them. I'm not sure they just strayed into that congregation. So, but why he felt he needed to do that service in English and then make it called the appendage did not make more sense to me. But maybe somebody may have an answer and help us out here. Now, this particular one, I got it on the Emina Castle, not Emina Coast, this is Emina Castle in Ghana. Now, you have here the directions. The only Akan language word you find there is Akwaba, and which means welcome. But the directional map is only in English. Somebody will say, okay, this is an international tourist center. Why not? But then, like we see in this particular other example I have, when you look really behind on the door, the School of Dramatic Arts, first and foremost, the first part is written in Gaelic. Then when you look again at the sign indicating the Dublin City Council, you also see below it written in Gaelic. So that means that the Ghanaian one could actually have also been written both in English and the most prominent language, in an indigenous language. But then only English is what is used. So I now ask myself, so why is that? Is it because you now have multiplicity of languages there? Or is it essentially, is it for that reason? Or is it also not possible to have written in this same direction in these different languages? Or you assume that everybody that must come must be able to speak English, or they must only be foreigners? And I wondered. So this is that. Then you see Nigerians here. Oh, everybody here is Nigerian. In the two pictures, you have here people that are Nigerians at different places and different locations, but in the same place. But the funniest thing is that all of them are also speaking in English. Nobody is now trying to speak in the language at least they have in common. So why again? Why is this again? So let's look again at another situation. This one is in Sun City, South Africa. Now again, yes, you may say this also is a diverse group. But again, the only language that is being used in this place is the English language in this case. I think that's the language that's the most prominent language also in South Africa. Of course, they also have other languages there, but nobody is using those languages. Everybody there is speaking in English. Yes, it's an international conference, I agree. But then nobody is making effort to speak the indigenous language there. For even the foreigner to say, oh, I picked this when I came here. Okay, so let's look at this. Now, one is on the left side, you have the one in Luxembourg Gardens. Then the other one is Elmina Castle in Ghana. Now, this first story is talking about the story of the Queen Mother in Akan society, and it is written in English. The second story from Luxembourg Gardens in France, in Paris, France, is actually talking about the history of Africans and all that happened, even up to what is happening in the Caribbean. But everything here is written in French. There's no apology about that. That the people that own this story may one day come and may want to read this in their language. But everything here, and for me, this tells you that the colonialist is preserving his language. He's telling your story on his own terms. And he's also making sure his own language is propagated. But then the African is telling her story and then telling in the language of the colonialists with no option of being able to speak. You are speaking about the Akan society, and then you are speaking it in English, and there's nothing Akan inside what is written here. So what do we think we are doing to ourselves? So these are different, also diverse. Of course, this is a mixed group. You have a mixture of, the first picture shows actually a welcome party for visiting lecturers in University of Ghana. The second one is a dinner meeting in Paris, France. Then the third one, the conference presenters, is different people meeting at different points. But the language that is being spoken here, in the first one, of course, it's English because it's in Ghana. The second one, you see it is French because all of them, yes, the sets of people here, mostly people that can speak French, but they're all Africans. They are all Africans, but they can speak, okay, I think there's a Caribbean there. They can speak French, they can speak English, but nobody can speak the indigenous language there. Then we have here also, this is a church story, and then what is being used there again is just the English language. Then you have the conference presentation again, just the English language, and you have again just the English language. So being spoken by all of these people. So crossroads of the people is also the crossroads of the trade. So you have here again is in France. When you look behind these people that are sitting, the direction here is given in French. And the conference that is heavy head here down in the lower picture down right is an international conference, and it's about Africa. It's about literature in Africa, but it is being presented in French. So this is talking about Africa on European soil, but it is done on the terms of the colonialists. So this then, all they tell their stories, different places and times, but the same problem. Colonization stifling life out of indigenous language through neo-colonial projections. Because while the colonialist is propagating its language, the African is undermining it. So while the colonialist is speaking its language, you see that the other ones is that what you have there is that the people that it is about their story, they are actually talking only about what the colonialist has given to them. So then the question is this: is it by choice or by fear that the African languages are being stifled? Is it this lack of understanding or assumption that it is the way to be modern? So the question is it neo-colonialism or is it a hegemonic concept? Is it that the people that have the language are choosing to put their language behind and promote the language of the colonialists? So when we look through all this, what are the findings? That the people giving this public speech or interacting in the public spaces in the instances given were educated people that seem to have become mulattoes. And that is why you can speak the French without interruption with the indigenous languages, you can speak the English without interruption from the indigenous languages, but you cannot speak your own language without interruption. So you are a mulatto. Whether you like it or not, you are a mulatto. So the church issue did not make sense, but then it indicates the condemnation of mindset that is sorry, because why would somebody that your congregation is mostly made of indigenous people, why will you be speaking English to them? I know if you go to maybe some of the so-called lower churches or churches where language is speak, what you have there, you might either have the situation where you're having the mixture, but at least they are conducting so I don't know, probably This also is something that we need to look at. Many people of African descent meet on the African soil and foreign soil, but cannot communicate due to this barrier. So this puts everyone in the bad situation and remain a threat to our culture because we cannot. The personal experience I had is that I will meet people with the same color like myself, but the person will be looking at me because he does not know what to say to me. It will know many of the African indigenous languages are under serious threat from dominant world languages, such as English, which is the number one threat to many languages of the world. Yes, English is the number one threat. Of course, maybe you may also say, when you look at what's happening on African soil, you may also say maybe followed by French. Then it was found that the essential problem of the negative psychological impression of many Africans also that they do not use their mother tongue. So at this point, the psychology of do not speak in vernacular continue to reign and hold sway upon the many of our hearts. So the other thing we have is that the transmission route of the indigenous languages, which is the home. What is happening there? What is happening with us? What language are we speaking to our children? What is this? So this is also we find that at home. Like the young woman that was wedding, I remember speaking to the parent because they do not only speak English, they speak it with the British accent. And they do not know how to speak the language of their father and their mother. I remember the woman telling me that she and the husband speak their language at home, but the children, so that their language, they will not have accent. They will not have Nigerian accent. They will not have African accent. So they do not allow them to speak their language. I mean, what do you pass on to these children? So in that case, so what do we think we need to do? Let's look at these children. These children, there's a birthday cake going on here, a birthday party, but these are children in the church. And what do you use to teach them in the church? It is not the language, it's not the language of that community. It is the language that is foreign. That is what they speak, and they speak the language well. I can assure you they speak it well. So what are you passing on to them? That is the question. And I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. So what should we do? What do we need to do as a people? All must become patriotic and committed to the preservation of identity because we are nobody. Haile was able to trade the progenitor because of the name, because the man refused to take on the name that is not his. He continued to insist that this is name, and he told his children, even if he had to tell them in secret, that this is my name, this is where you came from. And he was able to trace it and knew where he came from. Yes, that is just the name. Maybe the language could not survive because probably he had nobody there to speak to, but he kept what he had. That will remember his identity. So how we become patriotic, committed to the preservation of our identity? Then we must teach our children to speak our language. I remember once there's a research I was doing, and the person was asking this person that, and I said, okay, this data we got for these children speaking with their parents, why come they are speaking English? That was the question. And I realized really, what are these children? These are children that are under 5, and the parents are already speaking English to them. And you know, the funniest part about this thing is that even the one that cannot speak the English well will speak his own or her own kind of English to the children. So let us forget about vernacular and speak our mother tongue with pride. Your mother tongue is not a vernacular. It is the language that, you see, as linguists, we also know one thing. Scientifically, no language is superior to another. There is no language in the world that is superior to another. One may be more developed than the other, because if it is being studied and be expanded, it can actually become more developed. But then it is not necessarily superior to the other, because every language scientifically has its own peculiar system. It has its own peculiarity, and that is its strength. And it can also become its death if it is not sustained. So that our language is the death of our culture and consequently our own death. Because we die along with our language, we become extinct. When our language becomes extinct, we become people that we are not. So if we refuse to speak our language, we should be ready to bury them. And when we bury our language, it is ourselves we actually bury. And as such, colonial psychological hang-up must be the one to be buried. We need to bury that because our children must be taught to speak in Nigerian languages in order to preserve our very personhood. You know, the truth also is scientifically it has also been proven. If your child can speak your language very well, and doesn't have to struggle the way the child had to struggle to learn to speak English, that is transferred to become a better speaker of the English language. Some states have legislated, maybe I think in Lagos State, you have one day in which the language is used. I don't know how many, I think Ushutu has something like that. So, but I don't know whether this is really real, whether it's still being sustained. We need to know about that. So the question is this: who are you? Do you know who you are? Now, when you look at the language you use to speak, or that you prefer to pray in, then it will probably tell you who you are. Nobody needs to tell you. You will also know. Ask yourself this question, and that is it. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time. So my director, I'm done here.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think I really enjoyed this debate. It's a debate, correct debate, while we are not getting our language right. I'm happy that so many hands are up, but let me just quickly say one thing that I think is responsible for our difficulty in having language unison, especially in our country, Nigeria. My own perception now. Of course, we know, and you have said it, we don't have a unifying language in this country. And so the three major languages, Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, will be the one you want to bring, but forgetting the other ethnic groups like yours and mine. Yes, both of us now can say we're from Edo State. You can't speak mine, I can't speak yours, we can't understand each other. So there's no way we will not get to gathering and speak English. That is a lingua franca. However, you are not saying if it is strictly you Okwe people that are seated, and for example, strictly Ishan people seated, why do we still speak English? Yes, that's another problem, because since they have taught us in the schools that we went to that we should speak lingua franca, that is English, then we want to abide, with that, to speaking that language. However, I want to talk about that preaching. You said you went to a church and the priest there was speaking half English and half a car language. And I want to say you have already answered the question yourself, because there could be visitors there, and you won't wait that the visitors will be left in the hands of those who may misinterpret what the priest was saying. Because we were saying the visitors or those who didn't speak the language, they could learn from, they could be carried on by the other members in the society. No, you want to drive and win a soul, that soul is for you. You win it to the last. You don't give that soul, you don't leave it in the hands of others, because they could misinterpret whatever you have said. So the way to do it is to have that language mix, or whatever terminology we give it, so that somehow everybody there will be carried along. That is my own view of what happened in that church. Having said that, I don't want to overflow this. I want my senior colleagues and other colleagues to contribute, immensely to this discourse. So I will start. I'll call Emeritus Professor Sogolo, and then Professor Tijani. And please, I want to advise TechnoSpark that is not a name, and I cannot call TechnoSpark to speak. So kindly change it to your name so that we can call you, please. That is the advice. And anybody who has a CO, TechnoSpark, and all that, we cannot call you with those names. Please, just put your names, and we'll be happy to call you. Thank you. So Emeritus Professor Sogolo, followed by Professor Tijani, then Professor Adegbite Tobalashe, now follow as number 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. As usual, anytime my dean presents a paper, there's never a dull moment. And I've enjoyed this presentation. I've enjoyed the presentation from beginning to the end. And I thought that it was, it looked short, but when I look at the time, I found that she has spent so much time because I was following every point that she was making. But the first point I want to raise, maybe for the presenter to improve on the paper, is that, you see, the title says that Linguicide and African languages, then green economy, all right, as a strategic platform, all right? what I took that to mean is that there's a connection between the linguicide, that is the the killing of indigenous languages, and the green economy. But see, I now listen, and you find that that aspect of green economy did not quite come in until the end. I was always waiting, okay, what is the connection? What is the connection? Until the paper ended. Definitely, at the beginning, you try to make some connection, but I think it should be more, because that you are saying that the green economy will be taken for, will provide the solution. So you need to say more about green economy and the relationship. Then the other point I want to make is this. When you talk about interracial, marriage or translation in the church, or use of more than one language in the church and so forth, like the director said, that is done for reasons of functionality. You want to communicate, and you have the husband and the bride and the bridegroom from different places, and they have visitors. They have their own guests. Now, for the marriage to make sense, for almost all of them, you must try to, speak in more than one language. And of course, you should also note that when this couple then goes home, what will they do? The husband is not going to say, for the pride of the English language, we must speak English language, and the wife will insist, oh, for the pride of Okwe, we must speak Okwe language. That would be chaotic. So and the same thing in the church. You see, if like the director said, if you want to win souls, you want to communicate with them. You want to win the Yorubas, you want to win the Isoko people, Urobo, and so forth. You must try to extend this language so that they understand during church services. And so one of the things that I'm not too sure of is that, let me just give you this example, and you find it very common. Even the Yoruba language, Yoruba or Hausa language or Igbo language, the majority ethnic groups, they are treated sometimes as superior to a misconception, let me just say this now, to the smaller languages. And I will tell you about this experience. When I was growing up in my place in Delta, Isoko in Delta, so when we observed that our young men who went to Lagos or any other part of Yoruba land will come back home speaking the Yoruba language to our children. Now, what they do is almost to portray that the Yoruba language is a language of civilization. And then they speak, not only do they take pride in speaking the Yoruba language, they even come with Yoruba names. So you have an Isoko man who has gone to Lagos coming, giving Dele and so forth, Biodu to their children. And so that problem really is a problem that extends very widely. It's not restricted to English. It's not solely a colonial issue. It extends like that, that wherever you have a larger ethnic group or racial group, and they are dealing with a smaller one, the tendency is to portray one as a superior. But my point really is this, that for reasons of functionality, it is difficult to see how this problem can be resolved. Let me just stop there and let others speak. Thank you very much. I congratulate you for this kind of, I'm just talking whatever you can do to improve on the...
Thank you very much, sir, for your contribution. Thank you, Professor Tijani, sir, over to you.
Good afternoon. And I was praying that the emeritus professor will stop so that in the next 3 minutes, so that I can speak. Because in 3 minutes, I will be unable to, due to my Shioma Jesus that I must be at the bus stop. I want to commend the Dean of Arts, and I want to bless you. I'm not yet a pastor, but I'm a strange fellow, as many of you will say, given my names. I want to bless you because you have just validated what we've been contextualizing in the last 2 days at the conference in and out of Africa. And most of the people here, or some of the people here, are participants. Majority not attending this seminar are also participants. And the centrality of your paper and presentation, notwithstanding the fact that you need to modify the title as eloquently and succinctly noted by our Baba, Professor Sogolo, the centrality of it is that you decolonize the Eurocentric view of colonialism that gave birth to the so-called lingua franca, English, French, Spanish. On Friday, I will experience, Friday throughout next week, I will experience how the only Spanish colonized territory in Africa, Equatorial Guinea, is grappling with multi-lingua franca. Okay, in other words, meeting with them, trying to set up an American-style university and using English, okay, to teach. You decolonize this myth of the fact that we cannot understand, we must forget who we are. The historian in me was so pleased and bless you for reinventing and validating that history and indeed the arts and humanities are so relevant, and it is so wrong, so wrong. I don't want to use another adjective for anyone, anywhere in the world to speak about STEM, to glorify STEM without the humanities. So instead of STEM, you have advocated without saying it, that STEAM, in other words, or STEM H, is the way to go. In order for us to understand who we are, to appreciate who we are. I will conclude by giving a short story. In 1987, 88, I was in the then Gongola state, and I have 2 appointments, teach at the College of Education and work with MAMSA. And I made an error that re-educated me, despite my bachelor's degree in history, coming as the best class, the best student. When my MAMSA director told me, he is not an Hausa man. Who taught you history? What type of history? I am not, he was so, it's as if this man wanted to fight me. He said, I am a Mumuye. I said, what? Mumuye. I didn't see that in our groundwork of Nigerian history. Let me go and double check. That Hausa only unify us as a language. That is my identity forces, Mumuye. And we have our own dialect. So wow. To cut a long story short, I went back to the field. I did an ethnographic, research, and I wrote the history of Jalingo, past and present, purely interviewing people, going back to the Northern Archives, that I've never been to, and I want the state award for it. So we must know who we are. Whether we're in the US, Canada, or we're in Lagos, or whatever you, who we are is central to our success because it is our future. These children may speak better English, even if you brought them to Canada or UK or US, before you know it, their intonation, their accent change. It is just accent. But you must, within the household, teach, reinforce, and establish your identity. Professor Yabode Omolara Nwabueze, married to one Professor Nwabueze, we are still going to get another dowry. We thank you for not forgetting who you are, your identity. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It's good to see you again, sir.
Okay, Professor
Actually, he's
Adeleke,
hearing you, so he will pay.
Professor Tobalashe, I think it's your turn, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm on transit, so I'm on the road. But I'll just be very brief. I want to appreciate the presenter for the good job well done. I was very interested when I saw the title because it's I'm in literature, so it relates to my field a bit. Now, just like the prof who spoke earlier said, there is no connection. I couldn't see a clear connection between language and the green economy. Yes, she made an attempt to try to talk about what it is, but it wasn't strong enough. So there's a need for the presenter to try and link green economy to language. She's trying to talk about the debt of language. All right, that once the green economy is gone, of course, there's debt will come because there will be no air to breathe, there will be nothing. Now our languages are dying, meaning that our culture is suffocated. But she needs to be able to, express this clearly so that people who read the work will be able to have a clear grasp of exactly what it is that she is talking about. Secondly, she answered most of the questions that she asked herself, just like you said. Why do we bring in English into conversations? Because we are a multi-ethnic society. People speak the same language, Yoruba, for example, but different dialects. The Ilaje dialect is different from the Egba dialect. The Egba dialect is different from the Ijebu dialect. The Ijebu dialect is different from the Oyo dialect. So the common language that people tend to use most times is the one that connects them, and this is English. And that's why you see that most of us speak English. Even when we speak our normal language, we still interject using English language. Now, the course, like Professor Tijani said, the first thing we need to do is to decolonize. And that is very important. Because if we ask, in what language are we being taught in schools today? It is English. In all of our schools, we use English to teach. And just like the white man has told us, do not speak in vernacular. We accepted what the white man told us because we believe the white man is superior to us. And so we agree with him that our language is a vernacular. The same way we agree with them that our culture, our religion is barbaric, is backward, is not progressive. So the first thing we need to do is we need to decolonize, just like President Danny said. We need to go back to the roots and begin to teach our children with our language. I was reading somewhere 2 days ago that physics, chemistry, and one other subject had been translated into Hausa by Bayero University. I don't know how true it is, but if it is true, then that is the way to go. Other universities need to begin to follow that line if what I read is true about Bayero University. If the family also has a role to play in ensuring that we decolonize and then we promote our culture, because our culture is being strangulated. Our traditions are being strangulated, and that's where the green economy kind of thing comes in. We are killing our own culture because we have imbibed the foreign language of people and we have totally discarded our own. So the family, right from the home, we need to encourage our children to speak our local languages. They must understand it. There have been several researches that a child who is able to speak his local language perform better in any foreign language that he gets to speak. So there's a need for us from the home to ensure we teach our children their language from our schools to ensure we teach our children with our language. And by the time we are able to do all of this, then of course, we will be able to solve the problem of suffocating our own ways of life, our language, our culture, and our tradition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. I think the next person is it Professor Taiwo Olorutoba Oju? I think that's the next person, after which Professor Ndukaeze Nwabweze will now speak.
Yeah, thank
you,
you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to have stumbled on this. Somebody sent, just about an hour or so ago, somebody sent this link to one of the platforms I'm on. And so I said, okay, let me quickly join this. And I'm happy that I did. And I want to congratulate the speaker for a job well done. I think she has done good justice to the topic. I did listen in some of the earlier parts, some of the links that she had tried to draw with the green economy, although I believe that she's going to expatiate on that in the full paper. One thing, let me say that one reason I was really very anxious to join this program is that some of the problems that have been highlighted have really been very much talked about. One thing that has really been lacking is the coordination of solutions to some of these problems. I belong to a circle, the Edinburgh Circle for the Promotion of African Languages. And time and again, we also run webinars. I'll send the link to the chat box. But time and again, we have always said that something that is lacking in this effort is this problem of coordinating efforts. So it would be nice, for example, if Professor Nwabweze would share her links with us, and then, so that when we coordinate our efforts, then we'll get somewhere together on this very, very important and touchy issue. When I was listening to her speak, to the speaker, and to some of the questions that she was asking, I said, oh, what an irony. What an irony. And that the place to actually begin to answer those questions is to say why she's delivering this lecture in English. Why we are all speaking English, for example. Why is the lecture not in Yoruba, for example? That would actually have provided a clue to some of the questions that she has been asking. But in terms of schematizing, some of the things that we have discovered to be the problem, there's a problem of history, of course. There's the problem of history, the problem of colonization and all that, and the mixing together of ethnicities and languages. But that's not the only problem. The major problem, I think, is also the problem of policy, which nobody has really talked about. Policy. The fact that we are all speaking English and that we are all doing all these mixes is not necessarily of the multiple ethnicities, because as she has pointed out, in India, they still speak Hindu. In China, in Japan, these were places that were also colonized. They speak their languages fluently. So, but policy has been a key issue in our own context. The fact that policy is geared towards the domination of the English language. And so we need to look at policy and see how can, once there's a political will to tinker with the policy. For example, if you have to speak your language to advance, You know, the only reason that people need to use English is that they need that language to advance, both locally and internationally in their career and so on and so forth. So if you need to also speak your language to advance, by fire by force, to use a local parlance, people are going to begin to read and speak their languages. If you have to have a C in your language, for example, to study in the university, that changes the dynamics automatically. So policy is key to some of these issues. Now, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not taking too much time. There's one word that I've heard that I think amounts to a misconception, which should be corrected. And that's the word functionalist. Yes, there's function, your languages perform function, and then if you need to switch from one language to the other, maybe for purposes of translation or explanation or explication and so on, maybe that's something that everybody does, including Europeans, including Americans who use English. If they need to switch to Spanish to make an explanation, they also do that. But that's not what we have here. That's not what we have here. What we have is that this cognizance has become a habit of culture, and it has become compulsive. And that's a tragedy. The fact that it has become compulsive, the fact that there are so many people who would have loved to be able to speak Yoruba fluently, but cannot do so. They cannot but mix. So it has become a force of habit. Even when people talk about lexical access, maybe you don't have a word to use, but even when there are words to use, people compulsively insert this word. So it's not so much functionality, and it's something that we need to look at. The final thing I'm going to draw attention to is also the factor of elite closure, which has been talked about in literature. I think the elite, when I say the elite, that means all of us here. We're also responsible because these languages constitute a means of livelihood. So we do everything possible to protect the use of the colonial languages. I think I'm going to stop by coming back to the issue of coordinating all our efforts if we can. I imagine that Professor Yabode Nwabweze is in English. One thing that has been problematic is that we've been speaking amongst ourselves. The English people speak amongst themselves. The Yoruba people speak amongst themselves. There is no coordination. So we all need to come together and say, okay, what are we going to do? What can we do to progress? Once again, thank you very much for this very educating and enlightening lecture. Thank you.
Okay, I think we actually had another lecture from the last speaker, and he was a promising candidate for this platform. So we are going to ask him to contact us, because I don't have his number, but my number is on the platform. But we're going to put it right now on the platform so that you can contact me. Then we take it from there. That's a nice one, and I'm sure the So let us give Professor Nduka Nwabweze the chance to speak, so that the presenter will now attend to the comments and questions so far. Then we continue from there. So let's give Professor Nwabweze a chance to speak. Thank you. Professor Nduka Nwabweze, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I join others to congratulate the
Hello, sir. We can't hear you. Or is it my own?
He muted himself. He muted himself.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I join all of us to congratulate the lecturer, the presenter, and most of all, I'm so grateful to the various comments and those who passed the comments. because you know, I have a very keen interest in this subject, and I also have a very keen interest in the presenter, because he's talking about decolonization. Decolonization. He's talking about
Yes.
bringing to an end some of the adverse colonial legacies that tend to die hard. I'm going to make very short comments. The green economy and linguicide. Really, there is a need to, the nexus between these two concepts is very clear, is very prominent in the title, but not so prominent in the body of the presentation. We're going to work on that. Two, somebody talked about policy. Policy, yes. Because I was going to say, in all of these discourse, where is the state? I'm talking about the state in particular, government and the people. Where do we come in? And that takes us to what the last speaker talked about, policy. Policy. Because we can be talking, we can be presenting, we can be amusing ourselves, and it ends there. We have to take it to the next level, okay? Where whatever we have been able to gather, whatever progress we have been able to add, okay, should be seen in terms of taking us away from where we are now, of policy-wise. And then that takes me to look at, apart from the state, I also want to look at the elite. The last speaker also talked about, particularly the educated elite. He also talked about some of these things we are talking about, languages, also being our means of livelihood, sustenance. The speaker herself is an expert in English language. She lives by it. She practices it. She teaches. She does research. And that's what she's paid for. So that is her means of livelihood. I don't think she is insisting or she's implying that we should in any way discourage the English language. The way it occurs in my mind, we do not need to hate English language or any European language or even Arabic for that matter. We can love them. We can study them more. We can improve our understanding of these languages. But what we need not do is to neglect our own, is to kill our own. I do not believe that if we love English more, if we study it more, it translates into African language, African linguicide. It's a question of what we as a people have decided to do. It's a question of official policy. It's a question of what the state sees as our language policy, because we can do that together. We can even do it so much that we are even teaching the English people English. Yes, we can. Even if nobody has done that, we can aspire to it, but take our own languages along. Kill this vernacular definition of our indigenous languages. We can do that. So we don't need to hate those languages. We need to love them. But at the same time, love our own, upscale our concept of our languages, and what have you. That is to say that the elite, we as the elite, because we are in a position to influence policy through research, through our publications, through our advice, through our counsel, we can do quite a lot. And the last speaker talked about coordination. I think I agree entirely with him, so that we are not just talking in our different cells. let us begin to break into some kind of center. And once we break into the kind of center, we begin to see these problems that we are seeing in its small dimensions. We begin to see it much more globally. Okay, and that will also make policy change, policy reform more robust. I will stop by saying we need mental decolonization. Mental decolonization. Okay, we need to, when the elite, when the educated elite, when the state, in this case government, when policymakers meet, we should be discussing in terms of language.
Yeah, just telling you.
Okay. Decolonization of our mindset. The fact that because they call our languages vernacular, they remain vernacular. It is in the mind. And we can jettison all that. But again, there's another bigger problem. If we look at our culture selectively, now we are talking about language. What of worship? What of religion? There are educated people who don't want to see anything African when it comes to religion and worship. You want to promote language, you don't want to promote this other aspect of our being. Because somebody says it is fetish, you go inside and see whether it is fetish. If it is fetish, what is wrong with being fetish? In any case, just because the white man said it is fetish. Okay? If it works for us, and I continue to ask our elite, is there any of us who will be appointed minister today? If you are from Yoruba land, I will bring Ogun and ask you to swear by Ogun that you will not steal our money. Many of them will not steal money. Some will even say, don't give me this position again, I don't want to go. Because they know that Shango or Ogun will react. If you swear by the Bible or by the Quran, they don't react. They don't react in any way. People have been stealing the country blue-black. Okay, but because the white man said, this is juju, this is fetish, we don't want to work with them. So this thing cannot be selective. We have to open our minds. We have to go further afield. As we talk about language, we should talk about other aspects of our culture. And then decolonize our mindset in its entirety. Not one this way. We take some here, we drop them here. That is when it's convenient for us. We accept here and not accept there.
Thank you,
ma'am. I can see
Thank you very much. Yes,
God bless you.
I think the last two speakers gave us lectures. Yeah. Thank you so much for your contributions. I don't know, I can see Professor Tijani's hand up. Is it that he has another comment or question? Because I want the speaker to go ahead and...
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Your hand just came up suddenly. I hope you're not trying to answer the questions for the presenter. Let's quickly give you 1 minute to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Nwabweze, for the insightful delivery. The issue of multilingualism in Africa is a bit complex when it comes to relating that with linguicide. There are so many sides to it, but I think that there have been moves actually to try to suggest that we come up with a lingua franca that will help us to save our indigenous languages, but that doesn't seem to have worked. I think Professor Wole Soyinka tried at a point to say, look, all literary writers, why don't we adopt Swahili as our lingua franca? And then we also write in indigenous languages. But no, the issue is no speaker of a language wants to allow another language to be chosen. That's why we also have problems with classification, categorization of major languages, minority languages. For example, Edo Isha language, when I hear minority, there's something that, goes on in my mind. Why is mine minority? So these are issues. There are some, but I think that, okay, government intervention is crucial in this. For example, the National Policy on Language, on Education, says 1977-81 says, okay, the medium of instruction pre and up to 4 years in primary school will be the language of the immediate environment or the mother tongue. But you don't see that happening. And one of the problems why that is not being realized is that you don't have orthography developed for the indigenous languages. You don't have control over what happens in private schools, for example, on which language to use as medium of instruction. So there are so many angles to it, but I think, Ma, that when you are revising the paper, you look at the aspect of how do we get a lingua franca for countries? And then what is the place of the government in getting these things to work? Linguicide is not even just about dying. Prof and I are into something now. Beyond dying, if you see the kind of language the Gen Z generation use on social media, you see that there's something happening to the indigenous languages already in terms of spellings and use. So there are so many angles to it, but I think that government has a role to play in the survival of languages in Africa and then Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
So thank you so much for, wow, people just remembering to put up their hands. Okay, let me give this person a chance because it's not our staff.
No, it's my student. It's my MA student.
Oh, your student. Okay, let's give you the privilege, the immunity of being a prof student. 1 minute,
thank you,
please.
Thank you so much, Ma, for this opportunity. I want to join those who have commended Prof to say a very big thank you for that succinct lecture on linguicide and African languages. Ma, there are a few questions I have here. One of it is there actually a way out of this quagmire, considering that African languages have no economic importance attached to them? If I am to publish, for example, in any African languages, in any African language, who are those who are going to buy my materials? Will it make sense internationally? These are some of the issues raised here. I am also sorry to say that I am a victim of this English being seen as a language of prestige and class in Nigeria and Africa. And as a result, I do not speak my indigenous language to my children at home the way I speak the English language to them. And that's because, like I said earlier, I do not see so much of economic importance attached to my language, especially my own language, that is not even considered as a minor language, because it is only spoken in a part of a local government in Cross River State. Thank you, Ma.
Okay, thank you so much for that comment. And let's give our presenter the opportunity to attempt to respond to these comments and questions. Over to you, Ma.
Thank you very much, Director and the chair of the seminar. The first thing is the issue of the nexus between the green economy and the linguicide. Actually, I expanded on that much on the paper itself, but I'll still look again and see if I reread it and see if there are things to make it more prominent. That I recall many of the comments, so I've noted that. Then the issue of functionality and all of that, somebody tried to actually, because my view about this is this, really, if we deal with the issue of the colonial mentality, I think we'll solve most of the other problems. But as long as we're going to look down our languages, then we're going to have this problem. It's a mindset thing. There's nothing wrong with I gave an example of a study my student made, and he did a study among the groups, and I did my own observations among the Yoruba filmmakers. In the films, they say it is a Yoruba film, but you have a lot of code mixing. What function are they performing? So that is the question. Then what function are most of us? If I would speak English, what was actually for most touching for me in the finding of my student was that he said, when there's a formal occasion where they're supposed to speak Igbo, then these people will see them doing code mixing. But when this person now is in the office speaking English, which is another formal occasion, the person does not code mix. because he did the study on these two different places. I mean, the challenge I'm even having with some of my MA students, I didn't have that with those ones, but they're able to actually get these things, and we are able to get this data. So what is the problem? What is the problem? You are not talking about now. You are saying, okay, when you have other people there, when you are having the occasion, it is for you, for your community, and they speak the same language. Why will you code mix? What a language in Igbo we did not understand? So there's a problem somewhere. And I was also told the fact that maybe you are talking about somebody winning souls. I also am in a church where in the different locations, the Indian language, even though the language they generally use is English, but you have people, actually you have interpreters with people that speak to them. And I also told you that I was in a situation where I have been in a country, we could not, what they got is that they got someone to be interpreting. Someone was interpreting, but the language being used there is French. And then the translation to English was being done. So this is also done. We have Yoruba church. You go to CS generally. What you have there is actually people speaking Yoruba in the heart of Yoruba, in the Yoruba land. And then you have an interpreter that is English. So when would the person see the need that, because you don't want to see, so for God's sake, who will mislead? Who will mislead the person? So me, I sincerely, I don't find any excuse for that. I don't, but that is my own opinion. So that this thing, because I just say that if we decolonize the minds, we will solve most of these problems. Then we have okay, that's again this thing. The first thing is to colonize. Okay, these are the comments too. Comments about the colonizing, coordination, and solution. Why is the lecture not in Yoruba? That's a very interesting question. And these are things that we have to grapple with. Because now maybe I will give the excuse of saying that, okay, in my institution, what we use there for communication is English. And probably maybe also funnily enough, maybe because we are also have national spread in the institution. So every language in Nigeria is inside, and then the only place we can meet again is in English. So, but that's also the unfortunate story. Like Professor Chiani said, of our history. That's also a reality we cannot run away from. But what I have problem with is this: where you don't have such a problem, and you still say that you must speak in English. I went to University of Ibadan, and I know there in the hostels, where even most of us are speaking the same language, we still speak English. Well, how do you explain that? How do you explain that? And that's also to appreciate Professor Alon Oju. I'm meeting you for the first time. I know I peep into your work when I was doing my PhD in UI. So nice meeting you, sir. So now in my paper I mentioned. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for the acknowledgement. So in my paper I mentioned something about the government. Now we are being talking about what the state can do. Is the state the one telling you in your house you should speak English to your children instead of indigenous language? What you see, I made mention of this in my paper that the state cannot legislate this. It is in our hands, and of course we can only achieve this if we solve the problem of speaking vernacular and seeing our languages are being less. Scientifically, it has been proven there's no language that's superior to the other. I'm a linguist and I can tell you that. There's no language that's superior to the other. What Prof. Emeritus was telling us about this, even in my place, I am Yabodo Molara, because in my place, the only thing that was being spoken before was Yoruba. In my part of Edo State, you know, even Edo people call us in Koko Edo, they call us Yoruba people. You know, that's the language that is spoken. The only thing that is indigenous in my language, in my personal language, name that was given to me is Akewo, and which means it's a local Sunday. That is a day. And that is just the only thing that I can relate to, that I say someone can say I'm from Okwe. And now you see me putting it insistently on my name. It's the younger people now that are naming their children. Even the young lady I told you was the father was Stephen Olorunda. But it is that child that is Omofema. But funny enough, she uses the English one because she has become Briton. You know, that is just the reality. And it's not only, many parts of people, whether Delta or because everybody is tended towards the West. So they bear Yoruba names, and that's why you have the likes of Shegun and Arize. And I remember on Twitter, someone was telling me when I was Molara, who dashed your Molara? I said, see me, it's my parents that dashed me on Molara. No, somebody saying that, you know. But that is just also the reality of our history. that we do not also discontinue the fact that the languages that are bigger, they tend to kind of have this oppressive thing on the languages that seem that their population of speakers is not that much, but that doesn't make them actually superior. It does not. But the only thing is that politically, geographically, their tendency of just assimilation and swallowing up the other people around you, actually, it's not a reality. But then, if you speak your language to your children, I remember once, my father had to call my mom and say, are you using this child to learn Yoruba? But the reality also is that the first language I spoke in my life is Yoruba. I started to learn Okwe. And that is also the truth. So, but my father had to be calling with that. Why are you always speaking Yoruba to this girl instead of speaking our language to this girl? And that is all, but then, that reality is always cannot forget. That is also we need to correct because I should not lose my identity. And if I'm breaking my language here, people will be laughing. But today I speak it well because I persisted. Maybe because I now become a professor of English one day, I don't know. But that is just the truth of the matter. So the allies, I will say that allies, they are the guilty people. That is just the truth of the matter. We educated people, we should know better. When I'm inside a vehicle with a couple, the question I ask them is this: is your husband from the same place? They will say yes. I know a few times the Yoruba people, and I was like, why to them say why are you speaking this English to this child? You should be speaking your language to this child. I am also guilty because my grandchildren, it was somebody brought my attention to it, and I said, it is true. Why are these people doing that? These people are from the state, they are both speaking this language. Why are they doing this? And I had to call the mother. I said, stop speaking English to this. I think the last time I was in Lagos, I was just I said, you again. She consciously said, no. She's not speaking the language to the child. And many of us, we are the people that are causing this problem. And that is just the truth of the matter. Because we just felt that the excuse they used to give is that, the child will not speak English well. You must speak. This child will speak English. I grew up in Inolende in Ibadan. And I'm a professor of English today. So that is just the truth of the matter. That child will learn and master and be able to speak the English well, because that is the only thing the child will learn from school. Like Dr. Ahmed mentioned that for the first years of primary school should be in the, not just in the English, in any language, but a language of the immediate environment. But most people just go straight for English, and the people that do it mostly, the educated people. It's the educated people, and so we have mental colonization we need to solve. It's a major problem, and we must take note of that. So, Prof, you said about coordination. I've been interested. I would like to work with you, so you can let us connect. Please, there's no way the government can legislate these things. I'm really interested. What I was thinking of working on before was the language policy that has just come out. It's no longer the MP that is used now. There's now a whole language policy. I'm not taking time to study it, and maybe if I have the opportunity again, I may want to present a paper on that. But that is the language policy now. There's a language policy for the country. And I think so that's what the government can do. The government cannot enter your bedroom and tell you what language to speak to your children. I remember once I was saved because I could speak my language. I was stranded in a lorry. When I remember the address of somebody who were friends and I went to their house, the mom didn't know me, but we as children, we knew each other. And what saved me was, you know what saved me? I told her that I'm the father, this is my father, this, and he was just thinking I was lying. But when I now spoke my language, she knew I could not fake that. That was the only reason she took me in. Before the boy now came and started telling me, yeah, you are going to stay in my house. But the truth is that the government will not tell you to speak your language to your children. So what's the way out after a legal Africa for the country? So yes, I don't know how we're going to solve that problem. Sincerely, I don't have the answer to say we can afford the but we shall be. All the time I taught listening, you see, the one question I ask my students is that if you're a minister today, well, how will you solve this problem of national English language question? And people give different things, but then let us start from our homes. So is there a way out of the quagmire, considering that, please, this is the mindset that is the problem. You are looking for, okay, Wi-Fi has left. Okay, you are still there. You are looking for the language to have economic, you are looking for language to have economic value before you can speak your language to your children. I read Ajalo Leru in Yoruba. I read many Yoruba novels. I read them. And the funniest thing is that people from outside are coming to learn our language, but we were busy killing the languages. If you have a certification in Yoruba or Igbo or something like that, people in the US or everywhere, they are looking for you to employ. But you there, you are thinking that it doesn't have economic value, but you should, the value of your personhood should be more important than whatever money you can earn. So I think that is what I would say. Professor Bewaji asked a question that before 1600, taking random dating, that were there no internet marriages, trades, and communication? I mean, this is a very interesting question. This is a very interesting question. So what happens? I know people, I know someone might marry a woman in my place. The children don't speak their language, they speak her because she is the woman. She's the one that is in charge of the home. She should speak her language to the children. If the husband will not let her learn his language, then the woman will learn the language and speak it. So if that, then before English came and all of that. So what were we doing? So were we not surviving? So let us remove the mindset that makes us to be saying don't speak in vernacular, and then we will be free and do what is right. Thank you very much. I hope I'll be able to attend. I hope I didn't leave any out.
Yes, thank you very much, our speaker. I can see you are very passionate about this, and it's written all over you. But then, thank you. You have attended, answering most of the questions. I can see Professor Sugolo's hand up again. Am I right? Or it's been up since? Prof, sir?
I just want to say something. I don't know.
Okay, sir.
If you allow me, I will be very brief.
Oh, you're allowed, sir. You're allowed, sir.
Thank you very much. You know, what I enjoy with my dean's presentation always is the passion. She puts so much into it, and I love that. But I want us to, she talks about some language being inferior to others and says no language is superior to another. That's true. But let's not use the word superior or inferior. Some languages are richer than others. And what I mean by that is that the whole gamut, the whole body of language, of knowledge, in some areas, you find them in some languages. Talk about science and English language. Talk about technology and English language. Maybe Chinese language too. There are many. But when you now come to many African languages, all right, you cannot access those disciplines. And that's a fact that we must recognize and try to reconcile. You see, it's so nice to talk about being independent linguistically, but you must recognize these facts. That somebody wants to do science, technology, wants to do, has to, do that for now in English or in French or in Chinese. These were the problems that, the legend, Bab Fafowa, who first talked about the whole idea of one language, indigenous language, and so forth. He recognized these problems. So we must always reckon with that. And I will say that in some part of this paper, you must try to mention this, at least that it is a fact that some languages are, if you don't want to use the word richer, they are more complex than others. But I don't want you to be using some are superior or inferior to others. That's not the right language. Still not making. Thank you.
No, I actually mentioned so much, some are more developed. I mentioned that. I said some are more developed. What happens that they develop?
Okay,
At least they now have a science language because they developed it.
Yes.
So if we don't speak our language, we will not be able to get to the point of developing science and it in our language. So we must start from somewhere, sir. That's the point we are making.
Presenters, I think I don't want to use the word develop. I think I prefer the term used by emeritus professor, because remember you were saying somebody could get an interpreter to interpret the sermon, and I say that is where it comes in, this richness in language, because you lack what it is. When you are interpreting, you now start to describe instead of you to use a word that represents what the speaker has said. Because you cannot find the word, you now start to describe, and in your description, if I've watched some of those interpretations when I was in the Southwest, in Ibadan precisely, and the person will be saying, and he said, so, the person said, no, that's not what I said. Because remember that preacher also understands English, and he was speaking and understands Yoruba. The preacher understands both languages, and the interpreter will not be saying what the preacher did not say, because he found it difficult to use the right word. And so that was it. No, that's not what I said. And I'll be laughing. I say, see, quarrel has ensued here because of, language. So it is true that some are richer. Yeah, Yoruba language is very rich. Very, very rich. And yes, I also speak my language. I may not be very vast in my language, but I know that there are some things we don't have in my language, or I don't even know what we keep describing, instead of calling it a name that it should have. So that is the situation. So it's not really development per se. It's that it's completely missing. Completely missing. So it's richness that we want to see instead of development. So that is why, and you were wondering why in UI you were speaking English. If you didn't speak English, you are lucky. Perhaps that speaking English improved your knowledge Yoruba. Did you say knowledge? I didn't get it right, but I know you mentioned one aspect in Ibadan land. And you find in UI, people write in pidgin English because they cannot even write the English well. When they are writing the exam questions, they say, make it for, they're writing because they can't even write English well. It does happen. I have seen it as a teacher.
Not in my time.
People writing the exams.
Not in my time. Nobody write that nonsense.
They were not able to write English properly. So, and UI, of course, is also a university, and of course, multilingual languages. Even though you say it's in Yoruba land, people tend to speak in that language so that everybody can be accommodated. Because I know a bit about you, that's why I'm taking you up on that. Thank you so much. And I'm seeing Professor Lorutoba's hand up again. So let's give him a chance to make his last comment.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted to react to what Professor Emeritus Soglu said about the myth of the necessity of English. I think that's what the Prof just unwittingly also pronounced. First of all, the Russians don't speak English. The Germans don't use English. The Chinese, they don't use English. They don't use English for their science and technology. So it's a myth that, we need English. People need to use English for science and technology, etc., etc. As the speaker had said, and as Chomsky said, every language is equipped to do whatever the owners want it to do. So languages, and there's a whole body of inquiry now on African indigenous knowledge systems and languages, and how indigenous African languages can actually cope with science and technology. So, but beyond that, Prof, beyond that, the problem that Fafunwa and Co mentioned, it's not just so much about the language of science or technology. It's about the cognitive development of the child. It's about the cognitive development of the child. That is, in which language or in what language can the child actually realize the essence or the fullness of cognitive development. Now, of course, we all teach and all that. And you can see how when some people, when they speak English, they appear incoherent, stupid sometimes, and generally ineffectual. But notice what happens when they suddenly switch to their language. They appear very fluent, coherent, mature, and things like that. So it's the problem of cognitive development, that is this absence of the indigenous languages in the life of the children in the formative years does havoc to their cognitive development. And I'm happy that the speaker talked about her own experience of knowing having an indigenous language as background, as foundation. Then with that foundation, you know how to deal with language. You know how to use language. You know how to expand on language. And then the other languages can come in because that foundation is already laid. So, so two things. One, it's a myth that English is so essential that we can't do it with it. And two, the question of the use of indigenous languages transcends that. It starts earlier. It's about the cognitive development of the child. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we have really had a nice time today. We've had very intelligent discussions here, and very insightful lecture was given. I would want our presenter to say 1 minute just to round off before I end this presentation for today. Over to you, Ma. Just 1 minute to round off your last word.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before I forget, please, Professor Olorun, talk about it. Please let's have a way of connecting. Maybe when you talk to the director, maybe you get me. But
Maybe he should put the number. He can also put his number for us, or he can send it to me. Then I would like
to really connect. I'm really interested in this language and in this issue.
Yeah.
So let me just say this. Thank you for those of us that have remained. And the truth is that if we can just have I know Professor Linguicide have been working a lot on decolonizing, and I know Ellen know that he is leading a panel where we're also presenting people on in indigenous knowledge systems. So we are really working. The truth is that we just need to get out of that rut of thinking that we are less than anybody. That is just the truth of the matter. The languages that we have. Yes, I'm in language, so I will talk from the aspect of language because President Wabese was challenging. Why are we not talking about religion and all that? That's not my field. This is my field, and I'll talk about it. And what I have known, and I'm glad that President Olorun Tabaju said that, is the way the mind of the child develops, the intellect of the child. We as linguists, we have found this out. We have found this out. So we are not doing our children any good by turning them to people that are struggling with the language they are trying to learn. When there's one they can actually grow up in and be perfecting and be able to, and when I say that I actually grew up in knowledge and I'm able to become a professor of English, I'm just telling you that it doesn't stop a child, it doesn't hinder. Actually, it facilitates the mastery of the child of the language. And that's why it is important as parents. And I'm talking also to my students here. That's why it's important as parents that we speak our language, that the child will learn within that environment effortlessly. And the child will be a total person. Not only that, will be very confident. I know somebody that is a nursery professor today, and he was struggling with English. He said, why he doesn't speak confidently? He said, because he doesn't want to make mistakes. And then but when he speaks his own language, he speaks it so confident. I said, now, if you are speaking English, you cannot be confident. Of course, people will not believe you because you will not sound credible. But when you speak your language and you can be credible, that is just it. And that is just the truth. So we can know what we have done to those children. And this is just what is very important. I hope if at our corner, we don't need a government legislation, I will say again. And we don't need a government, we can only grow the language, expand the ability and functionality by developing and speaking it. So when we're able to, government doesn't need to come into that. But when we're able to succeed in that, naturally the children will grow up, will be the one that we will be pushing for the policy. So that's just what I believe. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope one day I'll be able to have the point to also review the national policy on language that has just come out this year. When I have the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Professor, for this very wonderful acting this afternoon. I mean, I think we all enjoyed ourselves. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And we are grateful that anytime we call on you, you always answer us. Thank you so much. And we expect to see you over and over and over again. We won't be tired of calling you, and I'm sure you will not be tired of answering us. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone here this afternoon. So I want to thank you for your time, for being here with us. And we hope that you will always find time to join us, because we always have nice topics, nice presenters, and we always learn. We always learn something. We take away something from this presentation once in a month that we have it. And you can't be tired of being here. Just make it a date. Most times it is second Wednesday of the month that we present on this platform. And we always let it go far and wide so that you can get it from somewhere. And I'm happy that somebody said, somebody sent it to me from one platform like that, and that's how it goes. It's always everywhere. Thank you so much, our emeritus professor, Professor Tijani, and all our now staff that are still here to this time. Actually, we don't really stay more than 2 as much as possible because it's a professorial discussion. So we give them time to showcase their work. Thank you so much. And it's not only for professors, all other doctors here, even the students, you can reach out to me. My phone number has been put on this platform. Reach out to me. You want to make a presentation, we talk about it. And of course, you can also present your articles in our journals, like I've said before. We make sure that we peer review it thoroughly and we present it, we publish it. So having said that, I want to call it a day because it's 2 minutes to 2 and I don't want to hit more than 2 o'clock. Thank you and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you, ma.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you,
ma.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks
ma'am.
everyone for coming.
Thank you very much, ma.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
ma.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.